Yo, buddies, I'm right now on my fucking hostel on the rooftop, traveling camping with the one and only Dusty. Whoop, whoop. We've been together on the Acatenango, volcano, and it was fucking amazing. And we immediately connected with each other. That was so dope, and that's the reason why you're here. And
it was funny actually because you were so open-hearted because you asked me a question, and instead of answering the question, I kind of gave a little soft pushback.
Yeah.
And instead of like kind of being rough about it, you accepted it and were like, yeah, fuck, I love that attitude. I love it. So, man.
Oh, buddy, man, Pearl, nice to have you here. And the number one thing that I enjoy about you is like this fucking enthusiasm that you have. Like, it's like 24/7. Like, of course, I just know you like for 1.5 days, but fuck, like, charisma.
Okay,
Bam.
I'm going to be honest. Something I'm learning about myself now is that I need to give myself space to recharge as well. Otherwise, I have zero energy to give others.
Yeah.
So it's funny that you say that like I have like 24/7 energy, because even just like 2 hours ago, I was so flat and I was like, I need an hour just lying down, meditation, some binaural beats in my head, and then I just woke up like, bam, ready to go again, So I think it's really important to know for me, it's really important to know my personal boundaries and to know where I get my energy from so that I don't run out of energy for others.
Yeah, of course, man. It's all about balance. You cannot be like 24/7, literally 24/7. Just everything. Though, of
but
course,
you kind of are though.
Nah, no. I gotta sleep as well, and I gotta chill. And sometimes, the last before I arrived in Antigua, I've been almost alone for two weeks. I got to know like 3 cool people, like really cool people, but I've been on my own, did my stuff and here and there, and was cool. I needed that, and maybe I need that like once a year, these 2 weeks, but that's what I need, Go ahead.
Good awareness.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Actually, I want to just start off with where we just left off, because we were just talking about some of the values. 3 of the so far 55 values. I'm thinking they could easily turn into 155 values.
Of course.
But the particular one that we brought up was the idea of comparison being the thief of joy. It's something that my wife says all the time. And honestly, I really know that to be true. Like if I don't have something to compare my current experience with, I find it very, very easy to be content. And we were just talking about, what about someone who lives in the third world, maybe playing with like dirt and sticks and stuff, versus someone in the first world who has Instagram and can compare constantly their experience with everyone else's experience in the world, and how much harder it must be to stay joyful.
What do you think about it? Because that's what I've been asking you. Like, I've been like really wondering if it's possible. Of course, maybe you know that quote like, adversity is the foundation for success. Of course, making something from nothing, man. My father, for example, is a typical example for making something from nothing. He had almost nothing, and now he has everything, like in terms of family and his own little company. He's a plumber, but he's completely content because he's fucking independent, He's happy as fuck. And due to his background story, like all this stuff, it's making him stronger. It's not just getting something from his great parents and that's it. He did everything on his own, everything. So
it sounds like there's some key elements to his joy there. Not just maybe financial success, but maybe actually, like you said, independence. That might be like a very, very high value for him. What would you say would be your kind of highest values in terms of, if you had a business like your dad, maybe not a plumber, but maybe doing something else, what would be some of the key things that you would want to achieve in order for you to feel...
To achieve with my company? Or
something.
Or for myself?
For yourself.
For myself is maintaining health for 24/7. Like really being healthy all the time. Like, of course, physically and mentally, especially mentally. Because being healthy physically isn't that hard. Do some exercises, sports here and there. Everybody has some specific kind of sports that you like, that you're good at, and so on. But be mentally healthy, man.
How do you maintain mental health? Like, seriously. Because this is something I've struggled with my entire life, like the ups, the downs,
First, like, of course, I'm fucking 25 years old. I'm not an expert. And the things that are going to come in life, that are going to make life what life actually is, like family and so on, of course, they have like some difficulties and so on. So I have an easy life right now. But it doesn't matter. Even though I have an easy life, I know bunch of other people who have an easy life as well, but I would consider them that they're not that mentally healthy, like, if I can say that. Like,
So what's the difference then?
Dissatisfied, like they're complete. You see it in the face. You know, when somebody has something that they're actually burning for, and you see it literally in their eyes, they're passionate about it. And I don't want to sound arrogant, but I know that I'm like that. And I know a lot of people, they're like, existing, not living. You know,
Human doing, not human being.
woo. Fuck, never heard that, but that's dope. Okay, but back to the question: maintaining mental health is what I told you. These values, I'm trying to figure out values for myself, like. Because, you know, a lot of people are talking about values and but it's just there. It's just talking about like health, success, fear, humility, wisdom, whatever. And I try to figure it out for myself what it actually is. Of course, I haven't like defined it for myself. Some of them I've been defining for myself. I have been defining for myself. Is that right? Yeah. Some or the most of them are like quotes by people that I got inspired by. Like, for example, Bruce Lee, Gary fucking Vaynerchuk is a wow guy. I gotta tell you something about him later, and so on and so on. They've been like this health thing. That's the number one thing for me. Like, health is an appropriate balance of the coordination of all of what we are. That was like, fuck. I've been like listening to them like.
Can I pull in something from something you were talking before? Because it seems like we've been kind of like touching on this topic of needing to experience kind of like a certain kind of low in order to be able to really appreciate a certain kind of high.
Yeah.
So, is it necessary to experience a certain type of let's say mental unhealthiness in order to be able to really understand and value and cultivate mental health?
That's what I've been asking you at the beginning, and I think that's just my personal opinion that it's actually not necessary. But the minority is like that. Like, I guess
Bruce Lee,
for example, yeah. For example, and he was a fucking genius and still is, whatever. But I guess that the majority, like 99% of the people need negative experience in order to realize things that I didn't realize before, you know? And but still, I guess that it's possible. Like the same thing that we've been talking about yesterday, you know? Reaching a certain amount of consciousness by psychedelics, drugs, LSD, and so on, or reaching it without it, you know? Like this guru you've been talking about. Bruce Lee is a perfect example for that, you know? I bet this guy never did drugs, you know? And he reached a level of consciousness that's like, what the fuck, you know? Like,
I feel like we are just the product of our conditioning. Not just the conditioning in this life, but also which sperm met with which egg, and also all the ancestors all the way back, right? So you're kind of stuck with what you've got to a degree. You can shift and change and mold, you know, throughout your life, but you are a product of your conditioning. So when we talk about like drugs versus just meditation or just being a badass like Bruce Lee, you got to work with what you're given, you know what I mean? And I recognize that I haven't been given the same set of circumstances that Bruce Lee's been given, and yet what I have kind of lines up perfectly with being able to use drugs as a medicine to reach certain kinds of levels of consciousness that I can then adopt back into everyday life without the drugs. But can we talk about drugs now?
Go ahead,
okay.
But it doesn't matter. Like,
okay, because something I wanted to tell you about. This isn't like an advocation of drugs. This isn't trying to say like, yeah, everyone should do drugs or specifically these kinds of drugs. But if you come to a place where you're comfortable with these kinds of drugs, or you want to, I would highly, highly recommend using LSD and ketamine together in a safe environment, preferably like at home with some music, some incense, you know, in your bed, not in a wild, crazy party and stuff. Like, that's also fun, but it's a very, very different kind of experience. If you really want to, well, no, I should start again. I have found that for me, I've been able to connect with my true nature like this when I combine the two together. Large doses of LSD and large doses of ketamine. Because when you drop into the ketamine K-hole, when your body just shuts off, because it's a tranquilizer, you know, it's an anesthetic. So when your body shuts off, it really just, it ceases to take in all the data that you're usually taking in from touch, eyes, ears, all that stuff, and instead it can just be free to let the LSD do its magic inside your brain. And some people talk shit about LSD.
Go ahead.
But Ramdas, his guru, Neem Karoli Baba, said something interesting. He said that God came in this time, in this age, in a material form, LSD, because we are in a material age. So it's really hard for us to accept God in a different kind of way. We kind of need to drop this pill, feel this experience that's different to everyone else's experience, and somehow come closer to ourselves and come closer to God in that experience. So some people, abuse LSD, some people talk shit on it, whatever. But for me, I've found it to be an incredible medicine, especially when I use it in the correct manner, and especially when I combine it with something like ketamine. So if one day you have the opportunity to, and you feel like it's right and all these things align, I'd really say, like, give it a shot, man, and it really might change your life, eh?
Can you explain it maybe more into detail? What is it actually doing with you? Like, what does it make you think about, and so on? Because, like, maybe to mention that, I don't do drugs at all. I've been like almost everybody on this earth. Like, when I turned 16 in Austria, that's the age to be allowed to drink alcohol. Like, from 16 to 18, I've been drinking a lot, like weekends and so on, peer pressure, blah, 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 blah. And then with 18, I stopped. I've been the driver when we were going out. And then when I was studying again with 20 to 23, sometimes I've been drinking something. But sometimes, and now, for example, I don't drink at all. I never smoked anything else than a little bit of weed, like when I was studying, and that's it. I don't do it like since 1.5 years or whatever. And when I did it, it was like 20 times in my life in general, so it wasn't, and I never, I was just there sometimes with some friends, and that's it. So for now, I don't do anything, and I really, really don't have the urge to experience other things,
Good, go with that.
But still, I'm curious. I even have a book at home. Its name is Drugs, where a guy from Great Britain is writing about drugs and the classification of drugs, and actually the wrong classification, that alcohol should be on the top above heroin and so on, blah, 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 blah. And he's a psychopharmacologist, so he's actually healing people with drugs or treating them, like with all kinds of drugs, and more or less not exposing it. He's like telling the world that it's not that bad like it actually everybody perceived it is, it's not that, but due to the fact that, whatever, there are a lot of stuff or a lot of factors that are contributing to the fact that drugs in general are perceived as bad things, blah, 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 blah. Whatever, doesn't matter. What I wanted to say, I'm the complete opposite, I would say, a little experience with this basic drugs that almost everybody has. But still, I'm interested in the complete other opposite. So
for
tell
sure,
me.
For sure. Okay. I think that when we drink or use drugs and this kind of stuff, it's the ego wanting to experience a certain kind of thing. So whether it's letting go some of the inhibitions, or whether it's I don't know, like it's the ego wanting to drive, right? And so when we take these intoxicants, it messes with our perception of reality, and it kind of it can make you feel good. So you roll with that, and it's blah blah blah, but it's still really based in the ego. When you have a particular intention to really explore consciousness outside of the ego, and you use some of these things as tools, I think it can be liberating for sure.
But sorry for interrupting, really sorry, but who has this intention? Who has this intention to experience consciousness outside, in terms,
do you mean who? Yeah. What do you mean who?
Yeah, that's not normal, that's not common, right? I would say.
In your circles, for sure. Yeah. And I would agree, it's not common generally in the world, but I think this group of people that are interested in these bigger questions.
Like Ramdas, right?
Like Ramdas, it's getting bigger and bigger. There's a group called MAPS, Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies. They're based in Santa Cruz, and they've been at the kind of the forefront of studies and legislation, trying to get things changing in the US for the last few decades. And now that things are starting to loosen up with marijuana, and now with psilocybin mushrooms, and now with ketamine, with therapists offering it in California, you can see it's just like starting like an avalanche of possibilities. So I think we're going to start to see a lot more people experimenting in safe environments and starting to find new ways of using these tools that have always been used as a way of escaping your current reality by just messing with your perception. Again, the ego, and instead we're going to start to use it to see like what's really behind the ego. I mean, the ego is helpful, right? I like Terence McKenna. He says, when you're at a restaurant, the ego tells you whose mouth to put the food in. So it is, and I mean, this stuff is useful, but the problem is we have an overactive ego that wants to run things all the time, and then the fears and the egomania and all these extremes kind of take over and ruin people's lives. There's something bigger going on there, and I think that drugs can have a really positive impact potentially.
Fair enough. And now back to the previous question. What's the experience? The experience in general, but I'm just thinking if I should formulate it differently, because I guess at the beginning you've been just trying it because you've been like, okay, let's do it, or did you have this intention from the very, very beginning to experience your consciousness in a different manner?
I grew up smoking weed, drinking alcohol, and that was about it. Oh, sorry, and mushrooms also. But it was the ego, like wow. Then when I was in my 30s is when I started to look at LSD, because I'd always been kind of scared of it. There was a kid in our town who had a freak out because of some psychedelics and really fucked them up for life. So they kind of scared us a lot. But then in my 30s, when I started experimenting with LSD and I saw it's not anywhere near as dangerous as people say, and I started looking around and realizing, holy shit, everybody's using LSD. Not everybody, sorry, but there's large numbers of people who are either microdosing it. Like, for example, everything coming out of Silicon Valley right now, every fucking innovation that's come out in the last 10 years has come from people who have been microdosing LSD, hands down. Because I know some of the drug dealers based in the Bay Area who are dealing to all the Google employees and the Apple employees and all that shit. So it's like, where do you think this stuff's coming from? Drugs aren't the solution, but they are a tool that can help unlock some of the stuff that's really up here, So when I started experimenting with it, I was really careful to ask people, what's your experience like? What would you recommend? And then just start dipping my toe in the water. Always researching what's the lethal dose, for example, because this stuff's easy to find. We have so much data on what's a safe amount of MDMA or LSD or ketamine and all this kind of stuff to take. What's interesting is that you can't overdose on half of this shit. It's not possible. You'd have to anyway, blah blah blah. So the experience. Okay.
Just continue talking. I'm just gonna check if my phone is still on, because sometimes it's overheating. So I don't want it to overheat. Go ahead.
So maybe I'll tell the first time that I combined ketamine with LSD.
Yeah.
It was at Burning Man, and I'd been up for a couple of days. And this is another key thing. I think that also things like fasting is really helpful, and sleep deprivation is really helpful as well.
Okay.
I don't know why, but it's almost like when you starve your body of certain comforts, it allows you to press through into new areas. You'll know this, even just hiking up a mountain at 4 a.m. The level of excitement that you feel when you get to the top of the mountain is so much more than if you caught a fucking cable car at 4 p.m.
Yep.
Anyway, so I was very tired, had a lot of other drugs in my system, but I'd really wanted to try a big dose of ketamine. I'd used a lot of ketamine in the past, and it usually has a stony kind of effect where it makes you feel really whoa, and also what they call the K-hole, where you sort of go into blackness, I suppose. Anyway, I found my friend who was really experienced with this stuff. I said, let's go to this place and let's I want you to keep an eye on me because I really want to go deep with this stuff. And so he kind of babysat me for an hour while I dropped into what's called a K-hole. Now, how to explain the experience? As I started, because I'm not sure, I don't want to assume what you kind of know about these kind of experiences, but anyway, basically, as I started to sort of fade from consciousness, I mean, it's weird. And with ketamine, you're still conscious, but you're anesthetized. Everything's anesthetized,
okay.
Right? So as I started to everything started to go black. the data that was coming in through my eyes started getting chopped up like a gigantic jigsaw puzzle, and then like every single piece of the jigsaw puzzle was kind of moved around into different places. Now, because I was on LSD as well, it was really making it pretty fucking amazing. But instead of being able to look out there and see a volcano, can you imagine like seeing like every pixel of that volcano in the wrong place, but just knowing that it's still a volcano, but it looks nothing like a volcano?
Okay.
Then what started happening is that the same thing started happening with the data that was coming in through my ears. So all the conversations I could hear around me, at first it was the words of the sentences started getting mixed up, so the syntax didn't work, and then all of a sudden it was the syllables, and then it was the sounds, till all of a sudden my ears were receiving, because by this time my eyes were black, my ears were just receiving this gigantic mosaic of jumbled sounds from everywhere, and I just had no way of being able to piece them together. Then I kind of went deeper into a place where it felt like I had become completely cabbage, like an absolute vegetable. And I remember the feeling in my head, like thinking, holy shit, my partner is at home, pregnant with our baby, and I've just fucked up my brain with drugs at Burning Man. They're going to have to ship me to a hospital and then like send me home to Australia, like with some kind of medical, convoy and stuff. Like, what? This is my life. And the moment that I realized, like, this could be the rest of my life, that I may never ever be able to ever again see anything or hear anything or understand or communicate or function or shit in the toilet or put food in my mouth or anything, the moment that I realized that, I just gave in and just said, well, this is life, this is it, and just surrendered, bro. In the same way that when you're born, you have no entitlement to anything, man. You could be born on a dump in Guatemala, or you could be born to Prince Rainier of Monaco. You know what I mean? Like, it's like you don't have any right to any place on this earth, and I just accepted it that right now that's going to be my life for forever. And being able to surrender like that to fate was the most liberating thing that I've ever done. It just set me free of anything any part of the story that I tell myself about who I am. That's what I call the ego. The story that I'm telling myself about who I am, because it's just a story, right?
So by surrendering, you mean like accepting everything as it is, saying yes to everything?
Exactly that. So, I mean, we talked about this on our hike, that we like to, as humans, we like to point at critical moments and go, this was the moment that everything changed. But obviously there would have been, 30 plus years of learning to surrender before I was able to make that decision. But it really felt like being reborn in that moment of being offered this choice. Are you going to fight it? Are you going to fight it like everything else in your life? Or are you just going to accept that this is the way it is, and this too shall pass? I mean, it might mean you might die, and be a vegetable the whole time, but this too shall pass. So it was a pretty big moment for me, and there's been several moments like that with the combination of LSD and ketamine. But it's usually more with kind of really expansive, me connecting to the entire universe and understanding really particular things about the universe, not just feeling like, oh, I'm dead. That's
Can you do you have like a dose for a year or something? How often do you take that?
So every drug is different for every different person, yeah. Right? But for me, I like to take upwards of 500 mics of LSD. So a tab is usually about 120 mics, and most people can have a lot of fun on 120. But once you start pushing it over 300, then you can like really start to kind of freak yourself out, but also like really expand your mind. And once you get, over 500, then you should be in a safe place. You shouldn't be like really at a party if you're taking 500 plus. And then with ketamine, this is the weird thing with ketamine. I'm really I'm not tolerant to ketamine. I'm tolerant to every other drug, but ketamine, I can just, even off just a small amount, I can K-hole if my head's in the right place and if I use it like a meditation. So that's too hard to, yeah.
But you personally, for example, how often do you do that?
Oh, how often do I do it? I'll go through periods where it might be weekly or sometimes even a couple times a week. I wouldn't recommend it though, because LSD works best if you haven't had it in your system for like 3 or 4 weeks. Mm-hmm. Most people would say, oh no, if you're going to have those kind of spiritual experiences with LSD or MDMA or that kind of stuff, only do it a few times a year. But I mean, everybody metabolizes this stuff differently inside their body, so I don't think it's helpful to kind of set rules. But my ideal would be probably to do this once a month, not touch any other drugs and just do that once a month. Because that's another thing, is that I notice that when I'm smoking all the time, which I do back home, it's not as effective. But if I've had a break for a little while and then I do it, it's really, really powerful, man.
But in terms of what? Like powerful in terms of what? When you're smoking, for example.
Oh, well, actually, I mean, I'm not sure I understand the question 100%, but actually just really quickly, even smoking can be a powerful, powerful medicine, eh? So I went through a period where I wasn't smoking so much, maybe a couple times a day, but when I did it, it was like a prayer to Shiva. So we can talk about God at some point if you want, but
man,
okay,
go ahead. Go, whatever is in your mind, talk about it.
Okay. So God. So when I first started looking into yoga and learning about the different Vedic scriptures and all that kind of stuff, I realized that that gods are just an invention of our mind, right? They're our way of explaining things, the mystery that we don't understand, right? And so I realized that what each god is really kind of more representing one particular characteristic of humanity. So when I look at the Hindu pantheon, which has something like 300 million different gods or something, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense, because there's probably like 300 million different characteristics that make up me and you and all of us, So each one of these gods describes a certain particular characteristic, There's not such one thing as like an angry Jovan. There's like 100,000 different types of angry Jovan, you know what I mean? Depending on the situation. So anyway, Shiva is an ancient god in the Hindu text, and even older than before Hindus even, from a pre-Hindu civilization, but what he does is he sits in the Himalayas and he smokes weed and he meditates. So some people think he's kind of like old-fashioned because he's represented by a penis, and so some people don't like to say that they worship Shiva. But I like to smoke weed and I like to have consciousness awakening experiences, which is definitely connected with Shiva. And so I went through a period where I was smoking and dedicating each time I was getting high, dedicating it to Shiva, and holy shit, man, the insights I would get, the synchronicities that would happen, just out of control. Anytime I'd just be like lost with what to do, just no idea, and I'd smoke, and then bam, just like things would happen, like what the hell? So I mean, this is anecdotal, right? There's no science behind this, but it's like you talk to enough people who use marijuana as a sacrament and not just as a fun, ego trip, and they'll all have the similar experiences where they will have met with the divine and met with their true nature through even marijuana, believe it or not,
So it's all about the intention that you have. If you're doing it just to escape reality, or if you're doing it because you wanna educate yourself by the aid of I don't know,
exactly, not to disparage people who would want to escape reality, because let's be honest, bro, in some ways we all want to either escape or at least enhance reality. Like, you never wake up in the day and go like, I want my day to be worse than yesterday.
Yeah.
So we're all in some way trying to massage our reality into something better than whatever it was before. And you can dress it up by saying, oh yeah, but it's because I'm passionate and I'm driven and inspired. Or you could say, oh yeah, I've just had a shitty life and I just want to get fucked up. Like, they're kind of the same thing. Just doesn't sound sexy to look at it that way.
You're right, though, and I don't know. Wait, there's one quote. I don't know, by whatever. I heard it once, and it caught my mind. Like, it's never underestimate the power of denial, and that's what I've been thinking right now. I mean, escaping reality is actually something that everybody does, almost, because if you look at the world how it is right now, man, how many wars are going on right now? The consumer behavior is fucking horrible in the end, like almost everybody, and the standards that you and me are living, for example, are being enabled by people who are living in shitty conditions, And that's something that is complete reality, but we're like somehow denying it or escaping from it. If it's consciously or subconsciously, I don't know, but we're escaping from it, I would say, in that manner.
I struggle with judgment. You mentioned that yesterday.
Yeah.
So my current thing that I'm struggling with judging in other people, because I'm always judging myself anyway, but in other people, is when I see people virtue signaling. Okay, that's probably a bit rude to say. When I see people doing things like picking up rubbish, like on the track or something, and I'm like, that's really cool that you're picking up rubbish, but the fact that you even are here in Guatemala, people had to suffer for you to be able to have a holiday in Guatemala. I'm sorry, but that's the reality of it. So it's like it's like we're trying to convince ourselves that we're doing the right thing, but anyway, I actually don't want to go down that track. It could get
Okay,
a little
because
bit,
you start judging, right?
exactly.
But at least you admitted it. Like,
Like being aware of the judging, I think, is helpful, because when we judge, what we're really judging is ourselves and other people. All we ever are doing is judging ourselves and other people. You know, I really like this verse from the Bible. I can't even actually remember it right now, but it talks about forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. It's a verse from the Lord's Prayer.
all right.
And if you adopt the idea that there is no Jesus Christ, that Jesus Christ isn't, that type of God, but that type of God is just, a fabrication of our imagination, and we've chucked it on top of Jesus Christ, then you could say that what he's saying is, you forgive yourself as you forgive other people for their trespasses. It's not really God; it's you that's doing that for yourself. So it's really any type of judgment, every single type of judgment on another person is really about what you see in yourself in that other person.
Every time you judge yourself, you reveal an unhealed part of yourself, or you reveal parts of yourself that are disowned within yourself. That was my conclusion in the last couple of months, because like you, to be honest, in that case, I don't want to say that I like to judge, but I just caught myself in the last couple of years that I've been judging everybody. I didn't want to admit to myself, but from the very moment when I admitted it to myself, I was like, whoa, I'm judging literally like every minute, more or less, like, fuck my life, shit. But you're totally right. Like, if you judge somebody, it's like, man, solve this problem that you have inside yourself. And if you solved it, you're not going to judge. And of course, you didn't solve it, I didn't solve it either, but we're trying to solve it.
Another, I think it's a Ram Dass quote that I really like, is guru is anybody or anything that shows you where you are not. And so in some ways I feel like everybody and every situation is guru, because like that's, especially if I'm judging, but I can't remember what I was going to say anyway. Never mind.
No, but does it go along with this thing that you can literally learn from everything, that everybody can be your teacher and everybody can be your student simultaneously, something like that?
Exactly.
Okay.
Is there any difference? But I mean, like then we start to get into the whole idea of quantum physics and vibration and us all being part of the exact same thing, and matter being 99% nothingness, and like, is there any difference between the stardust that makes up this table and the stardust that makes up me? I mean, there's an element of consciousness right here. I mean, you talked about Alan Watts the other day.
Yeah.
Did you hear a talk when he hits a gong? He mentioned something about consciousness, and then he hits a gong, and it's like gong, and he refers to that being consciousness.
No, I have to admit that I didn't see it.
I struggled with that when he said that, because I was like, this guy's a fucking whack job. What's he talking about? The gong is conscious. And then on LSD and ketamine, on my medicine one day, like it occurred to me like what this really is. Consciousness, or the way I see it, is consciousness is just awareness and response. So if, in some way, every single piece of matter on this earth has both an awareness and a response. So like, for example, when you tap this, the wood is being aware of my tapping, and it's got a response, that resonance you can hear.
Yeah.
So that might seem really dumb, but it's like, everything, even this air, if I go like this, the air molecules have both an awareness of my movement and a response. So the way I'm looking at it now is that consciousness, or awareness and response, inhabits every single molecule of everything. It's not just something that's in this higher consciousness or in some monkeys and stuff. It's actually in every molecule of your hair and everything. There is consciousness. And just when all of those molecules come together in the form of a dog, then they form a low-level consciousness called dog.
Mm-hmm.
When they come together in a real high complex form, like in a human, they're called high-level consciousness human, I don't know why went down that track, but
doesn't matter. But fuck, it sounds so fucking interesting, and it seems like not quite logical, but actually yes. So yes, no, whatever, and it's I guess that's something science is seeking for, and something spirituality is seeking. I guess that's gonna be like this. How do you say this intersection, or like, I don't know. That's gonna be this point, or whatever. Like in whatever how many years. I guess people are gonna think like this, like more in more into detail in terms of science and more into detail in terms of spirituality, and then they're gonna like just hit each other, spirituality and science, and like conclude, oh, actually we're talking about the whole like same shit but in a different way.
I think we're really close.
Like, I don't know, like fuck. Oh, buddy.
Something I also wanted to tell you about.
Tell me, man.
Was sun gazing. So, have you heard of sun gazing?
Is it when you're not eating anything and you're just feeding yourself with sunlight?
There's those people as well. I mean, sun gazing is just really gazing at the sun. It's that simple. But yeah, you're right. There are people who live on just air. They're called breatharians, and there are people who live on just sunlight. The problem is that some of the famous people who have claimed these kind of practices, they've been caught out for being frauds. So it kind of like, it makes people like disown like the whole lot. In the same way that like, you have some priests, that are messing around with little boys, and so everyone wants to throw out the whole church, and all of the teachings. But anyway, sun gazing is something that I heard a lot about, and I looked up and I thought that's for whack jobs. And one day I saw a kind of normal looking person doing it, and so I saw him on the street one day. I was like, "You were sun gazing. Can you come and have a coffee with me and tell me what it is?" So he just told me about like what he got into, and I started taking some of what he was doing, some of what I'd learned on the internet, and started developing my own kind of practice. And it's something I've been doing on and off for the last couple of years now, and I feel like it's, again, with the LSD and ketamine, has been like one of the most powerful, and yoga has been one of the most powerful medicines in my life. So I don't know why this thing kind of seems to work, but maybe it's again about that stuff about like fasting and pushing yourself to the limits. But every morning that I can, every evening that I can, what I like to do is sit down on the ground and gaze at the sun, stare right at the sun, not intensely. Like here's the thing: it's almost like you need to. Well, I won't tell you the rules, because I'll just tell you what my experience is. If I stare at it like strong, it burns the fuck out of my eyes. Whereas if I approach it with humility and go, "You are the biggest, strongest thing in our solar system, and kind of the reason how we all like created and are here even right now," and I recognize that the information that you are sending through light waves to the plants then feed the animals, which then feed the humans. So I guess like there must be a way for me to be able to take that raw data and for my body to be able to turn it into energy without having to go through all the levels of process, like first plants, then animals. Oh, I don't need animals, but does that make sense? And it's backed up by the fact that yogis have been doing it for thousands of years. So they're just not talked about,
Go ahead.
So, how I started was just by doing 10 seconds, because really it's hard at the beginning. But after you're looking straight at the sun, remember, with humility, not like hard, like looking through it, but just really just soft and really gentle. Your eyes start to get accustomed to looking directly at the sun, and then it just feels like you feel like it's filling you with energy, and you start breathing like it feels like you're getting filled with something like unnatural. I really don't know how to explain it. And I don't do it with drugs. Here's the thing. I don't do it with drugs, okay? So morning and night, and you add every day, you add another like 5 or 10 seconds. So I can do about 25 minutes. And I don't have I don't have a timer. I just do it for that day until I feel like I've had enough. And sometimes it feels like the sun is like, "No, you've had enough. Like, you can't handle any more of me." Maybe it's because of where I'm at, like psychologically or something, but you learn to know your limits. And so then I'll close my eyes and just meditate in front of the sun for another 20 minutes or something, and then just go on with my day. But for some reason, when I do that, when I involve that in every morning in my practice, like my days just go so much better, and everything just feels amazing. So it could be the sun, it could be that I'm being intentional about something, because we all know like the power of the mind. So who knows? For whatever reason, it's working for me. So I just had to tell you in case one day you ever have the urge to try it out yourself.
Thanks for sharing that information. And maybe it's due to the fact that you took time for yourself. Could also be, right?
All of these things combined.
I mean, I never did sun gazing, to be honest. I just heard about it, and yeah, that's it. I didn't investigate it or whatever. But it's kind of interesting, because sometimes this random thought came up like, "Hey, what's that actually?" And then like after 2 seconds, I didn't think about it. But it's cool that you just, that you were explaining it, because I know that you just seeded something in my head, and I'm gonna like investigate more into detail afterwards. Like, I don't know when, but we'll see, man. But what interests me right now, the way you're talking about things, and that I admire that, really, like, fuck, nice. I really, really love that. But I'm curious, like, about your circle of friends. Like, how, like, are they like you, or like, or in the end, like, yeah, the closest circle, like wife, friends, maybe brother, sister, I don't know, and tell me.
Yeah, I'm going through like a really interesting transition in my life over the last couple of years. I have friends that are deeper than me in a lot of these practices, and then I have friends that are like not even interested, and so it's a full range. Like, for example, like I've got a friend who's a shaman that I'm thinking of right now, and he's really, really deep in the medicine, like, wow, man. But then like there's other areas of his life where he's like a baby. He's like a child.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like I don't really have a group of friends who it's like they're all exactly like me, or that I would look at any one of these people and be like, oh, he's like a guru or something. Actually, that's something that I also wanted to just drop in there real quick. Someone said once to me that like that no one can ever be 100% right, and no one can ever be 100% wrong, and it really has made me like question some of the judgments that I throw on people. Like, for example, if I'm hanging out with someone and they're giving me a lot of like real positive, excellent stuff, like I have to catch myself and remind myself that a pinch of healthy skepticism is always required with everything that they say. Doesn't matter how awesome what they've said in the past. And conversely, even people that I'm dealing with, I'm like, this guy's a fucking idiot, man. He just pay attention, listen, look, because some gold is going to come from him. I know that for a fact. There's been people in my life who I've wanted to throw out, and like actually like I've got some of my biggest nuggets from them. You know what I mean? So anyway.
Fuck.
No. I think one of your values, and it might be one of those similar kind of things as well.
Like I didn't define it like that, but it's totally like that. Like, you cannot be 100% something. There's always A and B. There's no A or B, like good or bad, happy, unhappy, whatever. Goes all together. But still, like, okay, friends, blah blah blah. How is your wife in terms of that? Like, you're open as fuck regarding those topics, and if we're honest to ourselves and to everybody else, the minority is open as fuck to things like this, like in terms of spirituality, drugs, and here and there, and all the things that you mentioned before.
Yeah, I'm lucky. I got a real big head start on my wife, in that I was brought up in quite a passionate Christian family, and so they were really experimental, trying out all this crazy shit. Like, for example, like when I was until I was 7, I had really bad asthma. Like every day I needed an inhaler. And then when I was 7, one night we're at church, and I was actually asleep under my parents' seat, and they asked like some visiting pastor to like come and pray for me for my asthma. It was a real bad problem. The next morning I woke up, didn't need my inhaler. I went for 5 days without asking for my inhaler before they told me what had happened. They were like, on that night when you were asleep underneath our chair, we got that to pray for your asthma. And since that day, healed of asthma, bro. Crazy, eh?
Fuck.
So, or another one, bro. I had about, I think it was about 7 or 8 fillings in my mouth, and I went to a crazy Christian like glory hallelujah meeting, and where they're all like, yeah, heal everybody, give everybody gold teeth and all this shit. And I actually like after that meeting, 0 fillings, bro. They all disappeared. And there's been these kind of weird waves over especially like through the 80s and 90s where this kind of stuff would happen, where people would be like in a church meeting and literal gold dust would appear in their hands or in their Bible. And even cases where in poor churches, they would take that gold dust and sell it and be able to like buy stuff for their church. So there's crazy kind of shit that I've been around and experienced,
okay.
Right? So I got a bit of a head start on my wife in that regard. So she's on a journey too, but the biggest thing is she just cares about the results. Like, she just notices that when I give my time to my practice, whether it's yoga, whether it's drugs, whether it's even going dancing, man, sometimes she'll be like, go to a music festival and go blast your brain out with drugs and hang out with a bunch of people and talk shit and dance all night long, because she knows I'm going to come back like a better person. So she's
Fair
really
enough.
that's why she's happy with me to be here for 6 weeks, because she knows that she gets a better product out of it,
How dope is your wife?
she's really dope.
Maybe something that I actually want to mention to everybody who's listening and watching. people, whatever. For real, like the number one thing that admire is, of course, like your charisma and so. But the number two thing, if we want to define it, whatever, blah blah, was the enthusiasm, the enthusiasm that you were like screening out when you were talking about your family, about your wife, and especially about your daughter. I know a bunch of people who have family, who have daughters, sons, whatever, but yeah, let's say like this. Nobody of them was that enthusiastically talking about them like you did yesterday. And that was something really, really special to me. Because I consider family is the most valuable thing ever, to be honest.
You're the first person that said it to me, and this is the first time that I've made this connection, but made the connection as to like what the effect an intention can have, because you're the first person that said it to me, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But my whole life, not my whole life, like since I was maybe like about 21, 22, like anytime anyone ever asked, like, what are you going to do, man? What do you want to do with your life? If I really thought about it, the answer I would give everyone was, I want to be a great husband and a really good father. That was the only two things I cared about, you know, like, and because I'd sit there and think about it, and I'd be like, do I really want to be a millionaire? Do I really want to be a pro skater? Do I really want all this shit? And it's like, that stuff doesn't really matter, really. And I thought about, you know, my own experience as being a son and that kind of stuff. And I realized like the best thing that I could have for my life would to be a part of a loving relationship, a loving unit like that. And I didn't really think about it till now, but it's like, yeah, that speaking that over myself and reminding myself of that intention has kind of resulted in this situation where now I'm looking at this child as like the most beautiful gift ever to me. And I don't just mean that in like a, you know, people say that, oh, when you have a baby, it's going to change your life, man. Like, really, I could tell you too many stories about how like having this child has changed my life, but let me just share what happened like three days ago, okay? So I was at the beach and I was doing my sun gazing, and then in meditation afterwards, I just got this picture of riding down the street with my baby on my skateboard. Did I tell you this already?
Nope.
On the walk? Okay, no good. Okay. So, because I've got an electric skateboard and it goes fast, man, like, you know, 50 Ks an hour. I don't go that fast with my baby, but like, I hold my baby, like, and we ride the skateboard. You know, it's real awesome. I'll show you photos later. And sometimes people will yell out the window, "Get off the fucking road, you crazy road!" You know, because it's a little bit dangerous, you know. But I remember this one time, the first time that she fell asleep on my arm when we were riding home, like from the park. And I'm riding the skateboard and she's literally asleep on my arm. I have to take her helmet off while she's asleep when we get home to put her to bed. And anyway, in this meditation, while I was meditating, I just got this picture of me doing this very, very dangerous thing with her. And instantly, I saw every accident that I had on my skateboard over the years. Every time I'd injured myself and hurt myself, and I realized I needed those times. I needed to fall off to know what it felt like to know how to be safe and to get better at skateboarding, so that when I'm 39 years old, I can have this baby and ride down the road on a skateboard with my baby and not drop her and not have an accident. And I just instantly became so fucking grateful for every accident that I ever had. And I was just like, just like crying with gratefulness for every accident that I had. You know?
Fuck, buddy. But I gotta interrupt there. Still, man, like I couldn't imagine myself like with my 2-year-old daughter in my arms riding a skateboard on the streets. But still, man, that's fucking dangerous, right? I don't know. Like if you're that confident, like wow.
Like I said, like I wouldn't be that confident if it hadn't been for all the accidents and all the time spent on a skateboard before. But man, yeah. I
mean, so you're ready to take that much responsibility on yourself and on your daughter by doing these things without, like, wow. Like, I mean, normally I would judge you. If I would see you, like, on the street right now, like, with a baby, like, driving fast, wow. I would like, man, is this guy thinking about his daughter?
Is this guy taking too much LSD and ketamine?
Could be, man. No, for real. Like, in that case, I would be judging. But you understand, I guess, right?
And you have to be true to your own experience, you know? And so when I wake up in the morning and she's already pulling the skateboard out from under the bed and trying to put the helmet on, you know, and I'm like, she wants to ride on the skateboard. Well, you know, I always had this approach with her that whenever she was kind of like, had this direction to something or wanted to do something that I deemed dangerous, instead of saying the words no to her, because I feel like it's real powerful to say no to a child, I would make it my responsibility to go with her in doing that thing. So and to keep her safe. So for example, like she'll always want to go to the edge of the, or walk along a wall or something like that. So instead of saying, no, that's too dangerous, you might fall and hurt yourself, and make it my responsibility to go and like to be with her while she does that, to the point where even around like sharp objects, hot things, instead of being like, no, there's a boundary you have to observe. I mean, what am I going to do? Like, do I have some magical age? Like, it's like, okay, once she's 7, then she can hold a knife. Once she's 12, then she can ride a skateboard. No, that doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
So it's up to me to then like guide her experience and to be with her, to let her make the mistakes at her own at her own pace. I'm ranting, but
No, it's okay, man. Like that. No, it's a good explanation for real. Like it's now I can understand it more.
Well, she wanted to be on the skateboard, so
not
I'm
completely, but I can understand it more. And of course, I need some days, weeks, whatever, to think about things like these to get it more or less, or to have like a proper view on it. But it's okay because, of course, I have to digest it, I have to process it. And man, hard. Oh, buddy.
I really wanted to ask you about your about your book and everything as well.
But
well, I feel like we've gone.
We have 50 minutes right now.
We're at 5-0 already.
Yeah. Now is the question: if we should continue, or we should just talk about random shit for 5 minutes, and then stop it, have a chilled smoothie afterwards, and then talk about like this.
Booyah.
Other things.
I think we know the answer to that question.
Yeah? Tell me. 5 minutes, random? Fair enough, bro. Yesterday, I had this wow, like of course we've been there watching this fucking volcano erupting. I've been watching a video that I did. I maybe made 4 or 5 videos, whatever, but like short, 10 seconds, because I wanted to enjoy all this powerful demonstration of nature. You have like sunset on the right side, in front of you a fucking volcano is erupting, on the left side moonrise, full moonrise. Fuck my life, screaming as fuck. And what I really enjoyed yesterday was, because I've been going alone, because I don't know, like first I'm in a good condition, and maybe that's an ego thing as well, to be the first one, blah blah. And then I arrived, the last 100 meters I've been running, to arrive at the volcano. And then after 5-10 minutes, I don't know when I've been watching you how you arrived, exactly the same. You've been like running as well, like, and I don't know why, but I've been thinking about Lord of the Rings when I've been like, and I was like, man, this guy is Aragorn or Legolas, whatever. Like, I was just so dope. I really enjoyed this moment. Oh fuck. Yeah.
I like, you might have been the first. I was definitely towards the end, more like the last, but still didn't stop it. When I saw the end in sight, I turned to the guy with us and I was like, "That's it, bro. We're running," and just ran up the last part. So good,
so dope, man. So fucking dope. Concluding all the things that you've been asking me, one thing: what do I do to maintain a mental health? There's this one thing, defining values for myself, and not just repeating these values, not just saying them, thinking them, and feeling them, expressing them, like for real expressing them. And that's a hard process. I have my 55 values so far, but I can, like, for 100% admit that I didn't express every value, like, in that specific manner I wanted it to express. It's a process. It's okay, man. It's really okay. But the other thing, what I'm doing regarding maintaining mental health, is a super, super normal thing that actually a friend of mine recommended it to me. I'm doing it since 4.5 months already. Every time before I go to sleep, I write down 3 positive things of the day. So 3 things that I perceived as positive. Right now, it's not just 3, it's 7, 8. Yesterday, one thing, but one great thing I've been writing about the whole day, So, I don't know, like consisting out of 20 things or whatever. But that's something that I really enjoy. Because I love my life anyways, I'm aware of that I grew up in a super, super, super environment. I'm grateful as fuck for the things that my father did for me, that how he sacrificed his life to enable me and my brother to have a wow life. And we have a wow life, like fuck. And everything dope. everything dope. Always reminded myself, but still, when I'm doing these things, these 3 positive things or more, I'm just realizing, fuck, this is incredible, everything, like everything. It maybe once, like before 2 days or 3 days, one positive things was I've been on this bus ride from Lanquin to Antigua, 8 fucking hours, uncomfortable as fuck. There was shitty radio music, like really loud in this bus. Everything was shit actually. I felt sick a little bit, and then we just went out of this fucking bus in the like just to buy some things at a gasoline station. I was like, I just want one apple. No apples, of course, just fucking snacks. And I'm like, fuck. And just been going around, and there were like small shops, no apples. And then there was just one house with an open door, 2 little girls sitting there. I was like really asking her in Spanish if they have maybe like a fruit. I will buy it from them. And she was like going to the fridge. Yeah, we have una manzana, like 1 apple. Like, oh, fair enough. Here, like 2.5 quetzal. Okay, here you have. And I was the happiest man on earth in that moment because everything was shit. And I just wanted this fucking apple. And yeah, so
that is the perfect example of that direct correlation. You know, if you walked into, if the bus ride was perfect, and then like you pulled into the thing, and you're like, I feel like an apple. Oh, there's 100 apples to choose from. Which is the best apple? Oh yeah, this apple's okay. You know, like I mean, you would have more excitement about it, I think, because of who you are.
Of course,
but. The fact that they didn't have one led you to this awesome experience where you got to buy it out of someone's fucking refrigerator.
Yeah, man.
How many people can tell that story in Guatemala? You know, like seriously, bro. Direct correlation, between, you know, this like you're being starved for this thing, you have hunger for this thing, and then the satisfaction that you have when you get it in this bizarre way. So grateful, bro. You're one of the ways that you're changing the world around you is with your gratitude, you know. Boom.
Brother, thank you very much for your time. Let's have a smoothie or whatever, and